Much like the chicken and the egg, a much debated topic in the Batman universe is, did Batman create the villains or did the villains create Batman? Well, they explore it in the episode The Trial, which we're talking about right now. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. So glad to see you once again. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I hope you'll consider subscribing if you're like me and grew up on Batman the Animated Series and became a huge Batman fan today, because this is the show for you, because we talk about each and every episode of Batman the Animated Series 20 plus years later. And today we're talking about The Trial, which originally aired on May 16th, 1994. Now, this is a really fun episode. We see lots of different villains. We see a question being raised of if Batman created the villains or the villains created Batman, and Batman being held on trial by the villains themselves. So lots of fun things in this episode, but we'll talk all about it right after our 60-second rundown of the episode. Here we go. After Poison Ivy is sent back to Arkham because she cannot receive a fair sentence because she was apprehended by Batman, who is not an officer of the law, then we find out the new DA in town is trying to bring down Batman and have him be held accountable for not being a true police officer. And she runs into him in Gordon's office and makes that threat, but he is able to take down the Red Skull gang, and she doesn't know how she feels about this. And then we hear that Bruce Wayne and her are on a date together, and when she goes off to the bathroom and doesn't come back, we find out that she has been taken and kidnapped by some mysterious villains. So Batman looks into this, or Bruce Wayne looks into this, and Batman looks into this, and he is also captured and taken to Arkham. And at Arkham, we find out that she is supposed to be his lawyer in a trial to prove that he is the one that created the villains. And so Batman is there, and he tells her, well, we just got to go along with this, but she doesn't want to, obviously, because she's against Batman. So they bring her to trial, find out that the jury is all the classic villains. The Scarface is the bailiff, and Joker is the judge. And through a series of questioning and Two-Face is the prosecutor. And so through a line of questioning and witnesses and an unfair trial, we determined that Batman is innocent and not guilty. And so then but since it's not a fair trial, it's run by villains, they're going to kill him anyway. So they take him off, but before they kill him, they're going to unmask him, and before he gets a chance, then she throws Batarang into the light, and it's dark, and he fights them all and finally gets out of there. And she wants to get rid of Batman, and so does he. Ooh, good thing I'm not on the witness stand.
Hang him!
Shoot him!
Hit him with a rock!
So this is a really fun episode, and there's a lot of great elements to it. Obviously, seeing all the villains together and see them targeting Batman and not necessarily committing a crime and waiting for Batman to stop them, but them going after Batman himself and devising this weird plan to hold him on trial. But what I appreciate about this episode is that the story of the episode doesn't get lost in the fun. This is a real question that has been brought up in the Batman lore, is which came first?
We're all freaks and monsters. And who made us this way? Batman!
Or was the fact that these villains existed was the reason that Batman had to take on this fear element to be able to stop them?
I used to believe Batman was responsible for you people. But now I see nearly everyone here would have ended up exactly the same, Batman or not.
And it's a fun question to look at from different angles. For those of you that are watching Gotham, the TV show on Fox that's about Bruce Wayne as a boy or young man now growing up to become Batman and seeing the villains having their roots in that, it kind of explores that idea as well, that the more pressure that they put on the villains, the crazier they get, and the more of a need for Batman to come into the light, that to do what the police officers can't.
Janet, it's a war zone out there, and Batman is our best weapon.
Story-wise, that they tie it into the DA who is trying to get rid of Batman and wants him to follow the book and go by the law. Through the twist, she ends up being the one that has to defend him, which I love that idea. She has to be in a quote unquote court situation and defend the very person that she doesn't agree with. And that in itself is kind of an interesting plot, to go a lawyer that has to defend somebody that she doesn't agree with.
This is insane. Me defending you? As far as I'm concerned, you belong in here with them.
But also that through the course of this trial, as ridiculous as it is,
I'd like that last statement stricken from the record, please. Record? Is someone supposed to be writing this down?
she starts to learn something a little bit more about the villains and Batman and the dynamics there between the two of them. And I think that the villains do too.
We have no choice but to find the defendant not guilty.
And the other thing that I like is that they're using some of these other lesser seen villains that they've just used in this season, like Mad Hatter and Scarface and some of these other villains that we don't see as much. Although I wish that the Riddler's in it, but he doesn't speak. So they obviously didn't get John Glover back for this episode. But we have Croc in there and the jury, and even the fact that the Joker is the judge, but certainly doesn't play as big of a role as some of the other villains like Two-Face or some of these other ones.
What makes you say that?
And then when it finally all comes together and they're getting ready to unmask Batman, that the very DA who's trying to stop him is the one that has this Batarang, which we introduced earlier in the episode that she had pocketed.
Next time I see him, it'll be a whole different story.
Again, very, very well written in that sense, that she busts out the lights and now Batman is fighting the villains in the dark, which I think was a great deliberate choice, because here's Batman in this room with several very powerful villains, and so he gets a little bit of the advantage by having it be in the dark.
Okay, stop panicking.
So when it comes time to rank this episode, it has a lot going for it. One, it's fun because it has a lot of the villains working together in this kind of creative sense of holding them on trial. But at the same time, it's got a great story that deals with this question of who created who, and having the DA who's against Batman defend him. Great episode where the story can come full circle in that. So for all those reasons, I ended up placing it at the number 13 slot of my favorite episodes so far. Going into this episode, I thought that it would end up in the top 10. But again, there's just so many great episodes in that top 10. It is hard to punch through those that group. So just because this isn't in the top 10 does not mean that this is not one of my favorite episodes, because it really truly is, but it has to fall somewhere on the list. And it falls just below POV, because the one advantage that episode has is the different perspective. But it does beat out Christmas with the Joker, because as nostalgic as that episode is, this has all those fun things, but in addition to a great story.
But I'm still going to work toward a city that doesn't need Batman.
Me too.
So what do you think? Do you think that Batman is responsible for creating the villains, or that the villains are an answer to there being a Batman? Which came first? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, you can greatly help me out by hitting the like button. And if you look forward to seeing more of these episodes, then hit subscribe. We do new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. And next Tuesday, we have the last episode of the second season with Harley Quinn, I think is how you say it. So you don't want to miss that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Andy Knode, and I'll see you soon.